Guitar intervals, C major, A minor, and related modes, this time focusing in on the F Lydian mode, looking at measuring around the F note located on the 8th fret, 2nd string down from the top of the guitar. This is part number 3. Remembering one of our objectives is to get all of our resources lined up in the same direction to make them as easy on the eyes as possible from the perspective of the player of the guitar, who is of course located behind the guitar. Therefore, my guitar is going to look like, for example, I'm left-handed, but I'm not playing left-handed here. We just flip the guitar around so it mirrors the fretboard directionality-wise from your perspective from behind your guitar. So if we are behind the guitar, we've got the fretboard on our left-hand side, low or heavy string on top, left to right towards the body of the guitar here. Similarly, with our worksheet, this representing the fretboard, this E string representing the top or heavy string, the one closest to the ceiling, top to bottom, left to right on our mock fretboard here, being as though we took the guitar and just imprinted the strings on the screen. We're now going to be focusing in on the intervals related to the F Lydian mode. Let's do a quick recap of the whole process here. We want to try to cram as much in as possible as we do basically our theory work. What are we trying to cram in here? Let's go back up top. We're looking at the Ionian mode and its related modes, meaning the major scale and related modes for the shape that's possibly most familiar, which we can call a C major shape. But oftentimes we might play it in like an A minor if you learn it here. Some people call this position number 1. Some people call it a G-shaped C chord pentatonic position or something where it would be like this. That's just going from A to A. If I add the 2 other notes, that's a 5-note pentatonic. If I add the 2 other notes to get a 7-note, in this case possibly minor or Aeolian scale, it would be like that. And I want to really understand that shape because, again, if I understand that shape, really, I'm understanding all of the modes, right? Meaning the major scale, Ionian mode, Dorian mode, Phrygian mode, Lydian mode, mixed Lydian mode, Aeolian or minor scale, and the Locrian mode. Those are all the modes that happen to be in C major and related modes, but because the guitar is symmetrical, I can then shift all of those shapes up to play any other scale and related modes. So that's the point here. We're trying to get the relationships kind of like you would in an Excel worksheet so that I can see the movable shapes. And the whole thing is movable because we're working on basically an Excel worksheet. You'll note the fretboard, by the way, and I know this bothers some people. This is why I have to point it out sometimes because they're like, dude, the guitar is not math, man. The guitar is not accounting. The guitar is not a fretboard. Why are you using like Excel to do good? Dude, look at how the fretboard maps onto an Excel worksheet. The fretboard is a grid. Do you see? It's a grid. The fretboard is a spreadsheet, okay? I hate to break it to you, but because some people get it like it's a spreadsheet. The relationship of the notes are ratios. They're ratios. That's what they are. Like they used to, and the Greeks used to learn music because they associated it with ratios, relationship, right? That's one of the major things that you had to learn it because that made you cultured because it was basically like almost math, right? I mean, so it seems to be perfectly logical to learn on a spreadsheet. All right. So I don't know if that was a warranted rant right there. But in any case, so we're going to be measuring around the C each of these notes. And as we do that, we're just going to reiterate this shape, which has all the colored notes around it. But then we're going to construct the shape from each different pivot point, which is just a different perspective, which gives us a whole nother look and feel or shape to, not really a shape, but a whole different perspective on the shape, as though we're like looking at a picture and you used the zoom function to zoom in and out of the picture. So you can almost tell a whole story, with just one map, and you zoom into the map on one point and then you move into the, right? And that's similarly here. We zoom into the C and we look at it from that perspective. Then we look at it from the D's perspective, which means it's the same shape, but now we're emphasizing color-wise the 1, 3, 5 related to the D, and So we have a whole different perspective from there. And then we went to the Phrygian and looked at it from the E perspective, same shape, but a different color coding for the 1-3-5. And now we're still continuing on with the Lydian. So we're focusing in on the F with this, which is the Lydian, noting that I'm going to name the modes based on the major scale, using the major scale as our point of reference, similarly to like in physics where we use the Earth as a point of reference, even though you can measure from anywhere and do physics. Why? Because we just picked it because we happen to be here, right? We happen to, in music, really drill down on the major scale, even though it's just one of the 7 modes. They're all, it doesn't really, you can do the same thing from any one of them, but we happen to measure everything to the major scale in Western music typically. Why not stay with that tradition? Because that's going to make it easier to communicate with people. So we're going to say the C major is our key, and if I give absolute numbering systems to it, then we come up with this numbering system over here. In other words, the major scale 1 is Ionian, the 2 mode, I'm going to call it the number 2 mode is Dorian, the number 3 mode is Phrygian, number 4 mode is Lydian, that's what we're focused on. The number 5 mode is Mixolydian, number 6 mode Aeolian or minor scale, number 7 mode Locrian, the crazy one that we don't deal with all that much, although we still want to know the diminished chord construction at the least, because that is a useful tool. So now we're going to be continuing on what we did here, remembering we're comparing our intervals here and trying to memorize the shapes of the intervals, and the shapes will differ when we cross the fault line. So a lot of people just give up on that. They're like, dude, you can't memorize the shapes, man, because like it's different when you go from one string to the next string, because then you cross the fault line and the shape changes. Well, yeah, it's harder to do it it's harder. That makes it difficult. That's why the guitar is a challenge, but you can do it. It just takes, I'm not going to give up just because the earthquake happened and my house moved up a block and I'm not as close to the coffee shop anymore because of the fault line. No. I'll walk the extra block and I'll figure it out. Okay, I'll figure it out. Anyways, so that's what we're doing. So now we're going to be measuring around the F here. So we got a perfect first. We've got a 2-note away major second, which is the same as the major scale. We got a 4-note away major third, which is the same as a major scale, which is what we would expect because this is a major mode. 4 notes away major third, defining characteristic, making it a major mode versus a minor mode. We've got a 6-note away. This should say that it's a augmented fourth, but the augmented fourth and augmented fifth and diminished fifths are the same distance. And my worksheet is pulling this in with a formula, so I'm going to keep it there. So just note it should go from 3 here to 4, and that's the kind of wonky thing about our music system. Noting that also is the defining characteristic interval for the Lydian. So because the Lydian is a major mode, you could go from this shape, Lydian shape, to an F major by basically just flatting the what this should be a fourth here, right? You could make it go back down to a normal 5-note away perfect fourth instead of a 6-note away augmented fifth, which is the same distance as a 6-note away augmented fourth, which is the same as a 6-note away diminished fifth. All right. So then we have a 7-note away perfect fifth, which is the same as a major and a minor scale. As the main major and main minor. We've got a 9-note away major 6, which makes sense because that's what it would be in a major scale. We have an 11-note away major 7. We're now going to be focusing in on the fifth. That's where we left off last time. That is an odd number in our chord. When we build a chord, we skip every other note. So 1, 3, 5. Therefore, chord construction wise, 1, 3, 5 is right there, and that's the one that we're going to be picking up. So it's the same name, whether we think about it from interval perspective in the scale or from chord construction. All right, so if we're going to be here, we're going to be on that F. If I go up, well, let's go on the same string. First, we're on the same string. Now it's 7 notes up. So if I'm on the same string, I can count up 7 notes, but that's possibly further than I can reach, most likely, and therefore I'll look at the inverse. I'll try to go behind it because I can basically wrap this string into a circle, theoretically, and I could just think of it as a circle, right? So I could say, oh, if I go 7 steps one way, 12 minus 7 is 5. So I should be able to go 5 steps backwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do it with the orange here. So that means if I go backwards from this string, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from that note, that is, if I went from C to F, that would be a 5 note away, which would be a perfect fourth. If I go from F then back to C, that should be a 7 note away perfect fifth. 7 note away perfect fifth, going that way. All right, let's say I go up a string. So if I go up a string, where's the 7 note away perfect fifth? Well, it's going to be 7 notes away. If I go up, I have to look for the inverse distance. So 12 minus 7, once again, is 5. So, and that would be a 5 note away perfect fourth. So if I go up 1, there's 5, or I would call it negative 5. And so that means that if I do it here, go up 1, there's 5. So going from C down to F would be a 5 note away perfect fourth. Going from F up to C, therefore, the inverse would be a 7 note away perfect fifth. That means that if I go up 1 string, the 7 note away perfect fifth will always be on the same fret unless I cross the fault line, which only happens on the B string down here. So on the B string, so like right here, if I go up 1 string, then if I go up, well, now it's, hold on, I'm looking for the F here, not that one. If I go up 1 string from here, boom. Why does that happen? Because this tectonic plate shifted to the right in that big earthquake. And so that means that we have this kink in the tuning, kink in the block. You got to go back a block to find the same coffee shop that was forward a block, but it only happens on that string. So that means that if I go down, if I go up 1 string, the 7 note away perfect fifth is always on the same fret unless I cross the fault line, which only happens on the B string when I'm only talking about at least the 5 strings. Unless we go around the horn, we can get more complicated. But then it would be 1 fret back. That's the thing. All right. Let's say we go down a string. This is the most common one. By the way, we've seen this 7 note away perfect fifth as it relates to the C. So we're going to do some duplicates, of course, as we go through all the modes, which is important and I think useful, because if you do this exercise like this, what will happen is you'll practice the intervals that are more common in all the modes, which that's good because they're more important too, you would think, because they come up more, right? Anyway, so we're going to go to the next one and say that's going to be a 7 note away perfect fifth. So if I go down 1 string, 5, 6, 7, that's our normal shape. That's our power chord shape. Boom. So if I go down 1 right here, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7. So notice that if I have any of these notes, if I know all of the notes in a particular scale, then I might, it's a little bit more complicated for me to think of the chords, the full triad chords, because we have to break out the major and minor chords, which often we tie back to the major scale and say that the 1, 4, 5 are major, the 2, 3, 6 are minor, the 7 is diminished. But you can kind of cheat, right, and say, well, what if I just drop the third? I'm just not going to play the third. What does that do? Well, that means it's ambiguous. I don't know if it's major or minor. I can add the fifth, though, because it's going to be the same on all chords, major or minor, except for that diminished one. So the diminished is going to mess it up because that's when you have, in essence, a flat fifth. But all other notes in any scale, mainly, right? Any scale where we're talking major, Dorian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Phrygian, all of them, all the modes are going to have 6 out of 7 where you can add the fifth always, right? You can always add the fifth on 6 out of 7. And that's something you can do. That's why that power chord is quite versatile, quite versatile tool. All right, and in any case, so then that means if I go down 1 string, the 7 note away perfect fifth is always 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line. And that can only happen if I was on the G string, right? Because if I was on the G string and I had the F over here, then what would happen? It would be over here. So because this tectonic plate shifted forward. So whenever I'm reaching upwards and I cross the plate, it's going to make it a longer distance. So the rule is if I go down one string, the 7 little way perfect fifth will always be 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which only happens if I'm starting from the G string and I go down one string. In that case, then the 7 little way perfect fifth is 1, 2, 3 frets forward. All right then, let's go down to the next one. Let's go down to the next one. All right, so we're going to go here. So if I go down 2 strings, I'm going to say that's 5, 10, 9, 8, 7. 5, 10, 9, 8, 7. Let's count it over here. So I'm right here. 5, 10, 9, 8, 7. So that means that if so notice this one is one that you might not be as familiar with, but I really think it's useful to understand and look at because you can see the third is right there. So there's my major third. So this shape is actually logically nice and in order. It's not augmented or anything. It's clear to see. It's kind of hard to finger because you have to reach up here with either your pinky or you can do this and reach it that way if it's up higher on the fretboard in particular, and then you have your pinky kind of free to do something over here if you wanted to. Or that's not right. That doesn't sound good. I don't know. That would be in the key. All right. So then, but in any case, so that's actually a good one. So that means if you go down 2 strings, the 7 note away perfect fifth is 1, 2, 3 frets back unless you cross the fault line, and you will cross the fault line if you go 2 strings down if you're either on the D or the G, because if I was on like the D string and I go 2 frets back, there I am over here, right? And if I was on the G string and I go 2 frets back, I would be over here. So notice if I'm reaching backwards, then if I cross the fault line, it'll actually make things easier because the distance I got to reach back will be lessened. So that means that if I go down 2 strings, then the 7 note away perfect fifth will be 1, 2, 3 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which will happen if I start on the D string or the G string and go down 2 strings, in which case the 7 note away perfect fifth will only be 2 frets back. Okay then, everybody should be able to repeat this. This will be on the quiz, in case you were wondering, and you can count on your fingers, but note you can't, that's okay for the test, but you can't really do that in practice because your fingers will be on the fretboard and then you'd have to let go of the guitar. And unless it's strapped on or to your back or something, it'll fall. And then the distraction of the guitar hitting the ground and making a ugly thud sound will mess up your counting. And so just be aware of that. So then if we go down to the next one, we're looking for a 7 note away perfect fifth. Well, let's do this one up here. So now we're crossing the fault line. So we're going to say this is going to be 5, 10, and then we shift up to the 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's count it up this way. So I'm right here. So 5, 10, and then shifting up here 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Boom. So now I'm going down 3 strings. So if I go down 3 strings and cross the fault line, which is going to happen more often than not, then that means the 7 note away perfect fifth will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets up. But it's possible for me not to cross the fault line, so I'm still going to try to think of it that way, so I'm not like doing 2 directional things in my mind, thinking of not crossing the fault line as the default. So if I didn't cross the fault line, let's just see, and I went down 3 strings, then, so if I go down 3 strings and don't cross the fault line, or if I go down 3 strings, the 7 note away perfect fifth is 1, 2, 3, 4 frets forward, unless I cross the fault line. Because it's forward, it's going to be greater distance. So therefore, if I go down 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 7 note away perfect fifth will be 5 frets forward. All right, so let's go down to the next one. Otra vez. You know, I know a lot of people like say this, but I seriously feel like the platforms out there are trying to limit my reach. They're trying to stop my crap, trying to stop my crap from flowing, which I don't think is a good long-term strategy because I make a whole lot of super solid crap. You know, you gotta let nature take its course, or else it's gonna lead to some painful constipation. That's what I'm talking about. You try to stop that much crap from flowing, it would be like some dude that's trying to stop like the flow of Niagara Falls with one of those feminine products that he found in the men's bathroom, you know, for some reason. It's not gonna hold, man. It's not gonna hold. That's not what they're designed for. There's just too much demand out there. The only way you're gonna stop that kind of flow is if you actually build the Niagara Fall Dam. And that takes a lot of effort because like thousands of people died doing that. What's the point of doing is that really where you want to spend anyways, I don't know where that came from. I'm going down 4 strings now. We're going to the 7 note away perfect fifth. So if we're not going around the horn and we go 7 strings down, we will always be crossing the fault line. So it's going to be then 5, 10, and then here is 15. We can bring that down by saying 15 minus 12 is 3, plus another 5 is 8, and then back to 7. Let's count it up over here. We're going to say 5, 10, and then 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, plus another 5 is 8, and then back to 7. Boom. We can also, of course, count that by saying, why don't I count it upwards and then have the same string down below it? If I go up, remember that I have to take the inverse distance. So 12 minus 7 is 5. So if I go up, that would be 5 notes away. That's going to be the same down here. Now note that if I go 4 strings down, if I was up here, I would still cross the fault line. So I can only go 4 strings down if I'm on the top 2 strings, and therefore I will always cross the fault line. So if I go 4 strings down, the 7 note away perfect fifth will always be on the same fret. However, I can imagine, just from a thought process standpoint, what if I started right after the fault line and I counted around the top of the guitar just to get a feel for what that might look like, right? So what would happen, we'd say it's going to be 5 notes here, 5, and then it repeats over here, 5, and then we're going to say 10, and then 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, plus another 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we go back to 7. So I just want to note that because I want to just see the relationship if we went around the top of the guitar. You can still keep counting kind of as though you're counting down, even though pitch-wise you're going from a high string to a low string, because we're thinking of it not pitch-wise, but just as though all the notes are in a circle. So you could count it down that way and see the relationship. Now, obviously, the easier thing to do would be to say, if I want to find the relationship, I'm going to not count down 4, but rather count up 1, looking for the inverse distance, right, from this string, which means I would take 12 minus 7 is 5, and then 5 is going to be back 1 here because we're crossing over the fault line. But I just want to point that out. All right, let's go to the next one down. We're going to the D, so we're at the 9 note away major 6. So we count every other string when we look at it from a chord construction. So it goes 1, 3, 5, and then 7, and that's how many are in. That's how many. Let me go back a little bit. There are 7 positions, 7 notes, and then we go up to the 9, which is equivalent to the 2. And then we go up to the 11, which is equivalent to the 4, and then we go up to the 13th, which is now equivalent to the 9. So because this is an even number, we name it differently when we're thinking about where it lies in relation to the 7-note scale and where it lies in relation to chord construction as we skip every other chord. Therefore, the 9 note away major 6 is equivalent to, we can say, the 9 note away major 13 in essence. So either one are kind of interchangeable, although you can think about octaves, but we're not getting into octaves here. We're just thinking of a circle. All right, so if I look at that on the same string, then 9 notes away is going to be too far to reach up top. I'd have to count up 9 notes. Therefore, I'm going to go backwards because that's shorter distance. 12 minus 9 is 3. So 1, 2, 3 brings me back to the D. So we're going to say 1, 2, 3 back. So if I went from the D to the F, that would be a 3-note away, which would be a minor third, and therefore F to D is a 9-note away major 6. Okay, let's go up a string. Let's try to do this a little bit faster because we got to go through another one here, and I wasted time with my stupid joke. This isn't joke time. Don't you have a joke channel that you can tell jokes on? This is not that channel, okay? This is, all right. I can't help it, dude. I get, all right. So we're going to go, if I go up 1, it's going to be, I have to take the inverse distance. So 12 minus 9 is 3. So I'm going to say -5, 4, 3. -5, -4, -3. So that means that if I go from here to here, the D to the F, then it's going to be that would be a 3-note away minor third distance. And therefore the inverse from F to D is a 9-note away major 6. Therefore, if I go up 1 string, the 9-note away major 6 will always be 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which could only happen on the B string, in which case it's only going to be 1 fret forward because I'm going forward. If I'm going, well, yeah, it's only going to be 1. Notice if I'm going forward, it's kind of interesting because if I go up above it, because I'm looking at the inverse distance, it's actually going to be a shorter distance. But if I was going below it, like if I was going from this side to this side, it's going to be a longer distance. So now obviously I'm going up forward. So because this plate shifted forward, it's a shorter distance. So the idea would be, if I go up 1 string, the 9-note away major 6 will always be 2 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which only happens on the B string, in which case if I go up 1 string, the 9-note away major 6 will only be 1 fret forward. Okay then, let's go down 1 string. Going down 1 string, we could see it right there. So it's going to be, counting that out, that's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there it is. Let's count it out this way. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. So if I go down 1 string, then the 9-note away major 6, which we can also call the 9-note away major 13, will be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen if I start on the G string. So if I had this F right here, for example, now because I'm going down across the fault line and this tectonic plate shifted to the right, it's going to be a further distance forward here. So that means that the 9-note away major 6, if I go down 1 string, will always be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets forward unless I cross the fault line, which is only going to happen on the G string, in which case if I go down 1 string and cross the fault line, the 9-note away major 6 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets forward. All right, let's go down to the next one. Let's get serious. Let's get focused here. I've got to crank these out. You're pulling too much time, man. You're pulling too much time. If I go down 2 strings, the 9-note away major 6, we're going to say 5, 10, 9. So that's the shape. So if I do it here, it's going to be 5, 10, back 1 is 9. So if I go down 2 strings, the 9-note away major 6 will always be 1 fret back unless I cross the fault line, which is going to happen if I start on the D string or the G string. I can't start on the B or the E string because then I'll cross unless I count going around the top and around the horn. So I'm going to say, okay, if that happened, if I started here, then I'd go to D here. So now when I'm going down and back, whenever I'm going down and back, if I cross the fault line, it's always going to shift it to the right, making it usually easier, although this case it's almost a little harder because you have to bar it to get it here. It'd be a bar, which might be easier in some ways to think about, but it would be hard with a bar to not play that one, which makes it a little harder to think about. But the idea would be, if I go down 2 strings, then the 9-note away major 6 will be 1 fret back unless I cross the fault line, which is going to happen on the D and the G, as opposed to not crossing the fault line, which happens on the E or A string. And I can't go down 2 strings on the B or E, bottom E string. And if I cross the fault line, the 9-note away major 6, 2 strings down, will be on the same fret. Okay, So let's go down another one. We're going to say next one, otra vez, down 3 strings. It's going to be 5, 10, and then up here to 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, 2, 1, 0, back to the octave, and then, or 12, 12, 11, 10, 9. So let's count that here. So 5, 10, and then 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, 2, 1, 0. There's the octave, and or 12, 10, 9. Wait a second. No, that's right. That's right. I know what I'm talking about. Wait a sec. No, it's not. Something's wrong. It should be here. Let's do it one more time. So it went 5, 10, 15. 15 minus 12 is 15 minus 12 is 3, 2, 1, 0, octave, or 12. 12, 11, 10, 9. There it is. That's what I thought. Okay, so if I go down 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 9 note away major 6 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back, which is about our maximum reaching distance. And the only time I wouldn't cross the fault line is if I was on the string above it. So I would cross the fault line 2 out of the 3 possible ways to grab it. If I was up top, there's the F right here just off the screen. And then it would be back here. It would be a little easier to play. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait a sec. No, it would be harder to play. Because if I go down and back, wait a sec. I'm going down 1, 2, 3. Down 1, 2, 3. And then I'm looking for that D. So we have, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So that means if I go down 3 strings, and if I go down 3 strings, the 9 note away major 6 will usually be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fret. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frets back, unless I cross the fault line, which happens 2 out of the 3 times you can go down that many strings, 3 strings, in which case the 9 note away major 6 would be 5 frets back. Okay. So, okay. Let's go down 4 strings. So if I go down 4 strings, now I might say, hey, look, it would be easier to find the note on the top string, in which case I could say I have to find the inverse distance. 12 minus 9 is 3. So I'd say 5, 4, 3, and there's the D this way and this way. I could count it down, in which case it would be 5, 10, 15. 15 minus 12 is 3, plus 5 is 8, and then there's the 9. So if I go down 4 strings, the 9 note away major 6 will always be 2 frets forward, because if I go down 4 strings, that can only happen on the D or the E or A strings, which means I'm always going to cross the fault line. All right, let's go to the next one because we're running long here. So the 11 note away major 7. So a major 7, which is the same interval as a major scale as we look at the Lydian here, because of course it's a major mode. So let's say we're on the same string. I'm not going to go up 11 because that would be a long reach. I can take the inverse distance. I'm losing my voice. So if we take the inverse distance, it would be 12 minus 11, which would be 1. So it's 1 note back. So the 1 note back, that's the easiest way to get there. So we're going to say, if I went from E to F, that would be a 1 note away, which would be a minor second. If I go from F back to E, therefore that's an 11 note away, which would be a major 11. If I go up 1 string, then I have to look for the inverse distance. So the inverse distance of an 11 note away major 7 is 12 minus 11 or 1. If I go up, I'm going to call that negative 5, 4, 3. So it'd be negative 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm trying to rush over here. So negative 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom. So if I go from top to bottom, E to F, that would be a 1 note away, which would be a minor second. If I go from F to E, therefore, that's going to be an 11 note away major 7, which is that really kind of jawsy funny sound. Right? Kind of funky sound. So then I'm going to go down 1. So if I go down, I'm looking for 11 notes away. So it's going to be 5, 5. If I go down 1, I'm looking for 11 notes away. So 5. Let's go back. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. There's the octave, or 12, and then 11. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 frets back. So this is the one that's right in the middle. So it's going to be 6 frets back and 6 frets forward. So if I go down 1, it'd be 5, and then 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, or 12, and then back to 11. So top to bottom is going to be boom. Okay, so that's that. So that means that if I go down 1 string, the 11 note away major 7 will be 6 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen only on the G string, in which case it should move up and be a little bit easier down here to play, where it's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets back. So that's nice. So if I go down 2 strings, then we're going to say, if I go down 2 strings, it's going to be 5, 10, 11. So if I go down 2 strings, let's do it here. It's going to be 5, 10, 11. So if I go down 2 strings, the 11 note away major 7 is 1 fret forward, which makes sense because you might know better actually the minor 7, which would be like this shape from here to here typically. So it would be 1 fret forward from there to go from a 10 note away minor 7 to an 11 note away major 7. So if I go down 2 strings, the 11 note away major 7 is 1 fret forward unless I cross the fault line, which would happen on the D and the G string, in which case, for example, if I was on this F and I went to the E, because it's forward and I'm going down directionally, it would push it out further. Therefore, if I go down 2 strings, the 11 note away major 7 is 1 fret forward unless I cross the fault line, which happens on the D or G string, in which case if I go down 2 strings, the 11 note away major 7 is 2 frets forward. All right, and then we're going to go down to the next one back here. So let's count that one out. 5, 10, up here to 15 because of the fault line. 15 minus 12 is 3, 2, 1, 0, back to the octave, or 12 minus 1 is 11. So if I count it this way, it's going to be 5, 10, 15 up here. 15 minus 12 is 3, 2, 1, 0. There's the octave, minus 1 is 11. So that means that if I go down 3 strings, the 11 note away major 7 will be 1, 2, 3 frets back. If I go down 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 11 note away major 7 will be 3 frets back. What if I don't cross the fault line? If it was up here, for example, and I went down 3 strings looking for the E, it's going to be a longer distance back. It's going to be 4 frets back. So the rule is if I go down 3 strings, the 11 note away major 7 will be 4 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which is actually going to happen 2 out of the 3 possible ways to go down 3 strings, in which case it'll be a little bit easier because the fault line pushed this note up, and therefore the 11 note away major 7 will only be 1, 2, 3 frets back. All right, one more. If I go down to the next one, we're going to say it's going to be here. So we're going to say that's going to be 5, 10, and then 15 going this way. 15 minus 12 is 3, plus another 5 is 8. 8, 9, 10, 11. Or I could go up and say, why don't I look at this string and then mirror it on the bottom, which would be the inverse distance, 12 minus 11, which would be 1. This would be negative 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So there it is this way. So therefore, if I go down 4 strings, the 11 note away major 7 will always be 1, 2, 3, 4 frets up, because I'm always going to cross the fault line unless we think about it as we go around the horn. Just to get an idea of that, what if we did that? We go around the horn here, around the top of the fretboard. That would be 5 right here. And then I'd go around the top and repeat. That'd still be 5, same note, same 2 strings, or the same pitch-wise. So 5, 10, 15, and then 15 minus 12 is 3, plus another 5 is 8. And so now I've gone as far as I can without crossing the fault line, right? 8, and then 8, and then we're looking for 9, 10, 11. So there it is. So that obviously from here to here, it would be easier for me to measure going up one string, crossing the fault line, rather than thinking of going down 4 strings as we go over the top. But it's useful just to know that you can kind of think of this pattern repeating. Just keep it into consideration. What's the problem with thinking of it repeating? It's the fact that these 2 strings are the same. So if I think of it repeating, if I go around the top of the guitar, I'm not going to think about octaves because that'll mess things up. That'll be more complicated. But I could just think about the notes repeating. But again, you just got to think that this string and this string are the same, and then it will repeat. Like if I went down here and then I just copied like this bit and put it over the top here, then it would repeat. You know, if we just keep on going around over the top.